Hey y'all, this week's chapter video is over chapter 3, which is initiating personal relationships, and it was done by Catherine Matrailer, Sophia Onofrio, Casey Godberry, and Caleb Hopkins. We hope y'all enjoy.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia and I have the first section in chapter 3. The opening sentence of the textbook states, "The beginning of personal relationships, particularly romantic relationships, is often shrouded in an aura of luck and mystery." It got me thinking. When it comes to dating, I have a question. Do you believe it's fate, or is it just luck that you met that person in the right place at the right time? This was further discussed in the cases of Miss Landers, where she wondered if the relationships had started from forces that were outside of their control or beyond their comprehension. In many of the examples, the women said that they just happened to be sitting next to their significant other on the same plane or in the same car. I can personally input my experience that I met my current boyfriend in a classroom where the teacher had just randomly assigned our seats next to each other. Is that fate or is it luck? Another previous research on relationship initiation is longitudinal studies, but there happens to be a problem with this that they study recently initiated relationships rather than of relationship initiation. No matter who it has been between, whether it's roommates, friends, dating partners, they do not begin their measurements early enough. They begin them once they have already initiated their relationship, and that's not the point. There are lab studies of interaction between two humans that have also failed to address the actual process of initiation. And I personally would never think this would work because of how they conduct them. They basically pair and put two strangers in a lab setting, which they may or may not have information on each other prior to meeting. And you would think, and it does happen, two limitations occur. One being that the relationship is already some sort of initiated because they know they're being put into this room to do the study, and two, being that they're not in their natural social setting being themselves. So in reality, the results would not be authentic, and people would not be acting like their regular selves. It's obvious to me and hopefully to others that there really is an obstacle to overcome here. Someone's attitude and personality are variables that are extremely important, if not the most important. And how do we get to measure the initiation of early formation of relationships if the participants are not able to be their authentic self and show their true attitudes and personality without altering it? The textbook goes on to mention that physical proximity is the most widely recognized contextual factor in the initial meeting of strangers. And there was two studies to back this up. The first being the Bozard study. He investigated the distance between the residents of couples applying for a marriage license in Philadelphia during the first 5 months of 1931. A total of 5,000 applications were examined, and the distance in city blocks between the applicants were calculated. The results showed that just over 25% lived within 3 blocks of each other, and over 40% lived within 10 blocks of each other at the time they applied for the marriage license. The rest lived within 20 blocks. But someone had posed the question, more importantly, how close did they live to each other at the time they first started to date? Clark was the one to research and find data. He found in interviews that out of 281 couples who applied for marriage license in Columbus, Ohio, that 61% lived within 20 blocks of each other when they first started dating, and 25% lived within 4 blocks of each other. Just in these results from these two studies, you can see that people in their relationships wanted to live close to their significant other as the time passed in their relationships and they kept dating. We can apply these studies to today's world, or can we? In my opinion, I don't know how impactful and significant these studies would be in our time due to the nature of relationships these days. I see couples moving in together very quickly in relation to when they start dating. It seems that they move in together right away, no matter how long they have known each other or started dating. But at the same time, who really wants to do long distance in a relationship? If you're putting work into a friendship or a dating relationship, having one another close to each other usually makes the connection easier and keep it alive and strong. But the textbook argues for many people, physical proximity is no longer even a necessary condition for relationship initiation. It's because of the changes in two things, communication and transportation technology. They're no longer confined to the options people around them with things like cars and FaceTime. I like this quote from the textbook that said, "On the internet, there is no difference between being 1 block away and being 1 continent away." My question to you is, do you think that since physical proximity is becoming overrated, that people have the same initiating feelings when trying to form a relationship when meeting online as they do meeting in person?
Next, we're going to be talking about group norms. Norms are criteria for inclusion when looking for rational partners. To put it into perspective, can you think of the last time you met a new friend? Whether it was a friendship or a new dating partner. Why you chose them specifically? Was it their hair, age, physical appearance, etc.? Group norms are the premise for selecting a mate or rational partner. Typically, group norms tend to favor similar age, ethnicity, social economic status, education, and religion. In other words, if someone likes the same stuff you like, you are going to have similar backgrounds and you will want to include them in your circle. In this case of Gileas and Albus, there are ways that cultural changes in society can change and transform the group norms of selecting partners. For instance, the male being taller than the female. In Europe, the need for religious similarity has decreased in the last 40 years and educational attainment has spiked. Next, we're going to talk about situational generalization. Situational generalization is the effect of stress on affiliation and attraction. This term goes to show that people are more likely to communicate with each other when they are in a stressful situation. Sharing a stressful situation together will make people see each other as more attractive and motivate them to initiate interactions, which leads us into the study that was done that was shown in Chapter 3. And this study is by Dutton and Aaron, and it was a study that gathered information of how young men reacted to a young woman while crossing a bridge in Vancouver. So one bridge they had the men cross over was a very shaky, unsteady bridge, and it wobbled, it swayed side to side, which gave people stress and anxiety when walking over it. On the control side of the experiment, the men were asked to walk across a bridge that was wider, better constructed, had handrails, so it was more safe. After crossing the bridge, the men were asked to fill out a survey right after and write a little short summary and a brief story about a picture of a woman. So after Dutton and Aaron gathered the results, they found that the men who had crossed the unsteady bridge wrote more with a sexual imagery than men who crossed the stable bridge. The men who had more stress were likely to accept the woman's phone number and give her a call. Finally, we're going to be looking at social proximity effects. Have you ever met a complete stranger in a very odd place and somehow y'all knew the same person? It's not a coincidence. It's called the social proximity effect. As simple as it gets, it occurs when two people have a change in physical location relative to their place in a social network alters their probability of meeting. In essence, as the number of links within the social network increases, so does the probability of meeting. In the case Christine and Sam, there was a change in the structure of social network that allowed for both of them to meet later and get married. After all, Christine had a brother, Mike, and Mike had a friend who Sam knew. Over time, Sam was able to reduce the number of social links in her network, Mike's friend, Mike, and Christine. As Sam was able to get closer and closer to Christine within this social network, it was only time before they actually met, which they did, and they ended up getting married.
My section is on the third-party effects and how they affect the personal relationship initiation process. So the study was done by Karen Barnes, and well, first of all, a third-party effect is an intentional outside of the couple interaction or initiation that occurs at the request of its beneficiaries. When they first started this study, they were calling the outside help matchmakers, but they didn't get really good feedback or results from the matchmakers. because they didn't like the name and they felt it was not what they were doing. They were helping them, not matchmaking. So they changed it to helper and they got better results. But it's shown that over half of respondents that answered their survey said that they had helped another couple initiate a dating relationship in the last year, and that 2/3 of the respondents said that they were helped in the last year, and most were helped by more than one person. So who helped and who is helped? So a study done at the college level showed that being a sorority or fraternity on campus increased chances of a person being helped or receiving or giving the help. So the helpers tended to be younger than non-helpers and more confident and less concerned with like their outcomes and risk at the end. And they were more likely to think that their friend and family needed help with relationship as well. The study also found that being married decreased your opportunity to be a helper because of the fact that your social network has a smaller amount of single people in it, and therefore there's no opportunities for you to help. And then how are helpers and recipients related? The study showed that in 83% of cases, the helpers said they knew each other's, the helper and the person giving help. And then 79% of the cases, one or both recipients were aware of the help. Furthermore, 45% of the cases, a third party was asked directly, and this goes against the past principle that the third party was a kind of behind the stage, closed doors person, didn't get any interaction from one or both parties. And this shows that people actively use their social network as a resource for relationship initiation. And a question that I thought of was, could dating apps be considered a third party help initiating the relationship? And yeah.
This section of Table 3.1 shows examples of attraction manipulation and statistics of helpers and recipients who used and received these strategies. A respondent from this study said, I began talking about the good qualities of each other to both Dean and Liz. I told him that Liz was absolutely the best looking and sweetest girl I'd ever met. I told her Dean was a nice guy who wouldn't even try to kiss her on the first date. This is an example of saying good things about one potential partner to the other. Another respondent, Cindy, said one of her friends told her, he may seem a little hesitant, but don't worry because he's just a bit shy. This would be putting someone's negative qualities in a positive light. An example from Chapter 3 for noting similarities says, when Carrie wanted to get her friend Suzanne together with her boyfriend's cousin, she emphasized everything they had in common, such as having the same hair color, loving chocolate, having the same fun personality, and sharing the same kind of middle-class upbringing. There are plenty more examples, but I wanted to ask, have any of you ever used these strategies to get someone together, or have any of your friends done these for you? This section of Table 3.1 shows examples of attraction manipulation and statistics of helpers and recipients who used and received these strategies. A respondent from this study said, I began talking about the good qualities of each other to both Dean and Liz. I told him that Liz was absolutely the best looking and sweetest girl I'd ever met. I told her Dean was a nice guy who wouldn't even try to kiss her on the first date. This is an example of saying good things about one potential partner to the other. Another respondent, Cindy, said one of her friends told her, he may seem a little hesitant, but don't worry because he's just a bit shy. This would be putting someone's negative qualities in a positive light. An example from Chapter 3 for noting similarities says, when Carrie wanted to get her friend Suzanne together with her boyfriend's cousin, she emphasized everything they had in common, such as having the same hair color, loving chocolate, having the same fun personality, and sharing the same kind of middle-class upbringing. There are plenty more examples, but I wanted to ask, have any of you ever used these strategies to get someone together, or have any of your friends done these for you? This section from Table 3.1 shows examples and statistics for direct initiations. These strategies include arranging both parties to be at the same place at the same time, personal introductions, blind dates, and even double dates. An example of arranging both parties to be at the same place at the same time was from a respondent in Chapter 3 who encouraged his friend to take the same bus as young women he knew. Blind dates are meeting people for the first time on the actual date. A lot of times you see blind dates in movies, and for the most part, they don't usually work out. Double dates are when two couples go on a date together. This usually happens when two people that are dating want their friend to meet someone. The most used strategy for direct initiations is personal introductions. This is simply introducing one person to the other. I think at some point in all of our lives, we have introduced one of our friends to someone we think they could connect with. Can you all think of a time you have set up one of your friends? How did it turn out? This section from Table 3.1 shows examples and statistics for direct assist strategies. The most common form of direct assist from this study was when the third party coached the relationship. An example of coaching from Chapter 3 says, "He likes plaid and you look great in that plaid shirt." Third parties also play an important role as information sources. This could be giving one person the other's phone number. Often recipients request more detailed information on behalf of one or both members of the prospective couple. An example of this is from Chapter 3, and it says, "I became attracted to Dave while he still had a girlfriend. However, I knew that their relationship was having problems. Also, my roommate was friends with a girl in the same sorority as his girlfriend Jane. My roommate Eileen knew that I liked Dave, so when she talked to Jane's friend, she would nonchalantly ask her questions about Jane's and Dave's relationship. Then she would report back to me. Eileen was my informant." Some questions I have to ask from this example are, have you ever had an informant, or have you been someone's informant? Helpers were asked to estimate their percentage of perceived successes. About 30% of helpers believed to be successful in all of their attempts. About 26% of helpers noted that they had not been successful in any of their attempts. Helpers believed the more strategies they used, the more involved the couples became. Recipients, on the other hand, believed otherwise. A question I wanted to ask was, do you think the number of strategies used affects how involved the couple becomes, and do you think their responses are biased? These results also bring up a sort of cycle. If the help attempt is successful, the helper may offer additional help, or the recipient may ask for additional help. If the help attempt is unsuccessful, it is unlikely that additional help will be offered or requested. A question I wanted to ask was, why do you think this is? I think the opinions from both sides are definitely biased, but it got me wondering, is it biased that helpers assumed they helped that much, or is it biased that the recipient underestimated the helper's involvement? What could cause these biases as well? Helpers. This study shows that those who received third-party assistance had a more active social life than those who did not. It also shows how common third-party assistance actually is. This chart compares frequency of dating in previous 12 months for people who received third-party help versus people who did not receive third-party help. The table suggests that there was a strong positive association between the frequency of dating activity and the receipt of help from third parties. Through their helping activities, network members offer a resource for people who would otherwise not go out as often. It is also possible that those who already wish to go out frequently simply learn to take advantage of the third-party help. Two questions I wanted to ask were, have you ever given or received third-party assistance in a relationship? And do you go out frequently? Why or why not?